Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Geovanny Vicente Romero, CNM columnist. I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you very much for joining us today at NYUDC Brademas Center for this discussion on Puerto Rico's earthquake response, food, family, and FEMA, with World Central Kitchen's CEO Nate Mook and the mayor of Ponce, the city in the south of Puerto Rico, where the epicenter of the earthquake last January hit the island. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we are also joined here today by Gregorio Igartúa, attorney and public certified accountant based in Puerto Rico. So Ponce, Puerto Rico is the island's second largest city. The Ponce region was the hardest hit by the earthquakes, the strongest magnitude of 6.4, leaving large-scale physical damage and psychological trauma accompanied by severe aftershocks. Today, we will focus on relief efforts involving FEMA, as well food and the extended community. We also have speakers who will share stories of hope and hospitality. The event will also cover how a celebrity chef became an unofficial humanitarian envoy for disaster management. You know his name, right? Chef José Andrés. Puerto Ricans have shown tremendous courage in overcoming these earthquakes. People have united as an extended family to lend a helping hand with food and supplies during times of need. Thanks to organizations like José Andrés World Central Kitchen, people have had a nutritious meal and new grant opportunities to become food entrepreneurs. We will learn more about these developments today, and together with the response of FEMA to the recent quakes. For those of you who are following this event online, please, you can join this conversation by using the hashtags NYUDC and DC Dialogues, okay? So we are very grateful because you are here. Thank you very much for being here. And now, let's just meet our speakers for today's discussion. Nate Mook is the CEO of World Central Kitchen, known as WCK. Here, he works hand in hand with the nonprofit's founder, a very well-known activist and humanitarian chef, José Andrés. Nate oversees all WCK operations, leading the organization's emergency and disaster relief efforts, as well its long-term impact projects. He formally joined WCK after helping to create and lead the Chefs for Puerto Rico effort in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria that served nearly 4 million meals to people in need. We will begin with a short video followed by Nate's remarks.
We were all sleeping, and then it starts shaking. I felt that the house was going to fall. The speakers and all that was falling to the floor. It was broken glass. Scary, super scary. Because the house was literally shaking from side to side and up and down. And we have two kids. There's one from 5, one. We were thinking about nothing else. We grabbed the kids immediately and started running out of the house. The house you can rebuild at any time. That's material stuff. It can be replaced. But lives, you can't. So we're just grateful for what we have right now. That we're alive and we're here.
Thank you guys for coming. How come? So we scared. We're gonna fall inside for nothing. Let's go, people.
before going to their homes, checking out, grabbing some things, and coming back here?
We're happy to have World Center Kitchen here in Ponce, Puerto Rico. It's brought neighbors together, and all our nerves are very much on edge, I'm afraid. I think we're not sleeping very well either. But you know what? Out of a sense of appreciation for our lives and that our houses are good, we're able to come together and help others who aren't as fortunate.
Like a present. Perfect. And then we want to pull back.
Well, that was a very moving video. So now we are going to give the floor to Nate.
Hello, hello, good afternoon. I know I'm behind this podium, but I think I have to speak into the mic, so in case they're recording. So otherwise I'd come out in front. But so I'm Nate. I'm the CEO of World Central Kitchen, as Geovanny mentioned. I've known Jose, Andrés for about 10 years now, and what some people don't know is that World Central Kitchen has now been around about 10 years. The organization was formed in the aftermath of the earthquake in Haiti. Jose was a chef and a restaurateur, and some of you have probably been to his restaurants here in Washington, D.C. And he went down to Haiti to see how he as a chef could bring his expertise with food to help solve some of the challenges that the country was facing after the devastating earthquake in 2010. And what he found was that not only was there a place for what he could bring to the table, but that chefs in general, this industry that he was part of and the expertise that he had built over the years could be applied to solve some major challenges that the world faces. So he started small. We built a bakery and an orphanage in Port-au-Prince. We opened a culinary school in Haiti that to this day trains dozens of young men and women to go into the hospitality sector. And sort of project by project, Jose learned about ways that he could apply his expertise to some of these challenges he was seeing. And over the years, he started to find himself in disaster zones as well. Up in New York after Hurricane Sandy hit, when Hurricane Matthew hit Haiti and the Carolinas, he went down there and started to learn, a lot of learning going on. And things sort of culminated in 2017 when Category 5 Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And many people began hearing about Jose and his work from that point. So just some quick backstory. Jose and I flew down to Puerto Rico just a couple of days after the hurricane had left the island. So this is about 3-4 days after it had started hitting and sort of went all the way diagonally across Puerto Rico. And we didn't really have any agenda. It wasn't like we went down and we said, we're gonna go feed millions of people. We sort of went down thinking we're going to be there for a few days, see how we could help out. I'm sure they've got everything under control. This is the United States. FEMA's there. Things are going to be okay. And we got on the ground, and the first thing we did was we headed over to FEMA headquarters, and we sort of checked in and said, okay, well, how are things going? There was a lot of concern at this point about fuel, access to fuel. There were like 12-hour gas lines at the gas stations, and we're very concerned about that piece. And so we asked, who's handling the food? We're about 4 days after Maria at this point. You can imagine probably, in your own homes, how much food you probably have on hand, how long you can get by. Perhaps some of you are thinking more about this now as the United States has announced that the coronavirus may come here, and are warning people to start stocking up on some things. But you can think, for an unexpected event, how long can you typically last feeding yourself out of what's in your house? And usually that's probably 72 hours, right? I mean, once you get day 3, 4, maybe you've got chips in your pantry, you can kind of munch on stuff, but like real food without going to the grocery store, without going to restaurants. And at this time in Puerto Rico, there was no banks, no electricity, no communication, no grocery stores were open. So really we're at this moment of humanitarian crisis that we were looking at. And so we asked, well, who's in charge of the food? Nobody had an answer. FEMA didn't have an answer. Everybody was paralyzed with the scale of the disaster that had just struck Puerto Rico. The local government in Puerto Rico was overwhelmed. A lot was put onto the mayors of the towns in Puerto Rico that really sort of stepped into this role because they were kind of left alone. So we went and talked to FEMA and we said, well, what can be done? They said, well, we have about 2 million people that need to be fed in Puerto Rico right now, we estimate. So if you're doing three meals a day, that's 6 million meals a day we have to produce, and we have no idea how to do it. So we said, well, you know what, let's just start small because, clearly there's paralysis coming in from the top of support. So what can we do? What can the Puerto Rican people do to serve themselves in this moment? And that's where it all began. We went to a friend's restaurant in San Juan, started cooking 1,000 meals a day. That went to 2,000, 4,000, 10,000, 12,000, and slowly grew. We started in this tiny little restaurant. We moved into the parking lot. We eventually moved into the Coliseum, where that kitchen alone was producing about 75,000 meals a day. We then went on to open 26 kitchens across the island. We had about 20,000 volunteers that participated in the effort. And I think what's really important about this and why I bring this up is because Jose is a big personality, as you've probably seen him. And he's on the news, he's on Anderson Cooper, there's a lot of attention, and Jose, you're feeding everybody. But Jose will be the first one to tell you that it wasn't Jose that was feeding Puerto Rico, it was Puerto Ricans that were feeding Puerto Rico, right? They found themselves in this moment where they had to step up and support themselves. So sure, we went in and provided that sort of structure and organization, but we couldn't have cooked and delivered 4 million meals across the island without the Puerto Rican people leading the way. So we haven't left Puerto Rico. We've stayed over the past couple of years. We were cooking for about 9 months, and then we began looking at how we can support food security on the island. And we've built an amazing team there, and the team that even cooked in Puerto Rico has gone on as World Central Kitchen's work has taken us all around the world. We're currently in 8, we have 8 ongoing operations, including Japan right now for the coronavirus. And many Puerto Ricans from our team have also gone out to the Bahamas, to Florida, to North Carolina to serve others using their experience from Maria. And so just over a month ago, about a month and a half ago, my phone rang at 5 in the morning, and it was our team in Puerto Rico. And immediately when I saw the phone ring at 5 in the morning, I knew what had happened. Puerto Rico had a bit of a smaller earthquake in December, so we were sort of on edge about what's going to happen if there's a bigger one. And I knew the only reason anybody was calling me from Puerto Rico at 5 in the morning was because there was an earthquake. So I got on the phone, I said, we know what we have to do. And the Puerto Rican team on the ground mobilized. It's about 5 in the morning. By 7 in the morning, we were in the kitchen. By 8 a.m., we were cooking. And by 11 a.m., the first meals were out the door to some of the shelters and the camps that you saw in that video. And so I'll close just with a quick update on the situation. We're still cooking in Puerto Rico in the south right now. We've served nearly 400,000 meals since the earthquake hit. Our teams, led by many of the Puerto Ricans that were with us during Hurricane Maria, including some of our amazing food trucks and chefs, have been cooking every day and serving. There's still the formal shelters that are open. The National Guard set up these shelters. They came in. But we knew that we had to move quickly, that the only way for this response to happen effectively when people are hungry, You don't have days, you don't have weeks, you don't have months, you have hours before you need to get things to people. And so we knew we couldn't rely on, unfortunately, our federal government to get there as quickly as possible. But the National Guard set up these camps after about a week, and families that were living in sort of informal tents moved into the shelters. And to this day, we're serving, and thankfully, the shaking has lessened now. As you saw in this video, one of the big challenges is the traumatic experience. You don't know what's going to happen next. And imagine you're elderly, you live in the second floor of a home, you can't get out quickly enough, you have young children. People just didn't want to go back to their homes if there was going to be more earthquakes. So things are starting to stabilize a little bit. So we'll see, hopefully things will continue to improve, and I'm sure Mayor is going to speak more about this, but thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Giovanny.
Thank you for being here. Well, thank you very much for your remarks, your perspectives, and for being here. So now we will continue with remarks from Mayor of Ponce, Maria Mayita Meléndez. She has been mayor since 2009. During her administration as mayor, she has led recovery efforts following major natural disasters and overseeing 5 signature infrastructure projects under the Ponce Avanza initiative worth $177 million. Here is a brief video ahead of the mayor's remarks. And Ponce is strong. So we are very lucky to have the mayor of Ponce join us today, especially, as you know, the mayor in Puerto Rico have been the first responders during natural disasters, joined by organizations such as WCK. So thank you very much.
I'm not so tall like this guy, but I'm a strong woman. Yeah, gracias. Hello, good afternoon to every one of you. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to NYU officials for giving me the opportunity to have an open discussion about the response to the natural disasters that have been affected us in Puerto Rico. I appear before you, as always, with my heart in my hand and my head held up high. At the outset, I must recognize the work that has been done by my friend José Andrés, Nate Mook, Tim at the same time, Till Coyne, at the same time to Josh Phelps and Russell, who's there over there, and many other chefs from Puerto Rico, and they are from here, but we have to be thankful and grateful for all the work that not only our brothers and sisters from mainland has helped Puerto Rico. I must recognize at the same time that on behalf of all the people of Puerto Rico and Ponce, we have to thank not only mainland, FEMA, even though the President of the United States who approved things at the same time, even though we have been, after 2 years, waiting for money to reconstruct the island, as soon as this week they began to send us the money, not because of corruption of the city, not because of corruption of the governor of Puerto Rico, that there were 2 guys from FEMA who did the corruption area and have found that they mislead and other things, not Puerto Rico. Our time of greatest needs, you have given us hope. At the same time, fed our bodies and souls, and have demonstrated the transformation, power, and sacrifice and service. You know, I have been a dentist for 34 years, and you have been, maybe I will ask, she was a dentist and now a mayor. I am in my 3rd term. Our terms last for 4 years. So I am in my 3rd term as a mayor because my passion is to serve the people. It's my passion. I have 2 daughters. They are lawyers. One is a secretary of political studies in the staff of the governor of Puerto Rico. She's a lawyer for 15 years. She has been a lawyer. The other one is a lawyer at the same time. Both are like a mother and daughter because they fight for the people. They fight to get people services and get everything they need. As you know, the last few years have been very challenging for the American citizens of Puerto Rico because we are American citizens like you are. And during these events, public figures are encountered and encouraged today us to convey an image of infallibility, turning us into mythical figures. Some heroes, others are villains, and in the process, sometimes perspective about our reality is lost. We are imperfect. We're humans. Yet this vulnerability should not be viewed cynically, but rather as a source of strength, determination, passion. There lies out humanity, and we're humans. Therein lies our ability to emphasize this dynamic has not been determined, no, but reinforce my deepest love for my city, for my people, for the vocation of public service, even though I was a dentist for 34 years in a private practice. If you didn't have money to pay, I don't care. I did the service for you. That's the way I was educated for my family. Each crisis is different. I mean, the struggle of reconstruction process from Hurricane Maria has been very difficult. My last community and my city is the 2nd largest city in territorial extension in Puerto Rico. We are in the south, so our coast is with the Caribbean Sea. In the north is the Atlantic Ocean. So we are in the south, and it's a big city in the south, and it's a regional city because we have many agencies from the central government represented in Ponce. We have had to face the disaster of Maria, whose nature and impact are entirely different of an earthquake. While we constantly hear that the island has been hit by a few earthquakes, the reality is that the people of the southern coast of the island have had to endure thousands of earthquakes and tremors during the past month and a half. Yesterday, I called my emergency management director and I asked him, because every day we check it, and I said, how many quakes has been occurred? And he said to me, Mayor, 15. In the Richter scale is about 3.2, 3.0, 2.2, and he said to me, and I called him just a few minutes ago, and I said to him, how many times since this morning there have been quakes? And he said, about 8 earthquakes, 8. The largest one was about, in the scale of Richter, about 3.2. Since December 28, the big one occurred in January 7, in the 7th. But you know, Puerto Rico has a large Christmas, large vacations in Christmas. So we have the Three Kings Day in January the 6th, and people become at work again at January the 8th. So in January the 7th, we were hit by the earthquake with 6.4, and it was awful. It was awful. It was 4:30 in the morning. I left just in 2 minutes in the office of the emergency management office over there, and I began to work. I have to tell you at the same time that I suffered a medical intervention, an operation, and in December. And I was supposed to be in bed one and a half month. And my intervention was the 19th of December. So I only was in bed for 19 days. And I called the doctor and said, I have to work. I have to go out. I have to help my people. I have to take care of them. That's one of the reasons that mayors and people that are elected by you, we make a sworn, but to work for the people. So I said to my daughters, I'm sorry, I have to work and keep working. And until today, I have been working at the same time. And I'm still in treatment. But even though I am strong, we are strong, and we have to fight for our people. While we constantly hear that the island has been hit, and I said it is a different way of feeling an earthquake and a different way to feel at the same time a hurricane. Sometimes, I'm sorry, but sometimes my voice is closed because I would like to cry and I cannot cry. But we are not emotionally at the same time strong. Because sometimes when you see the people outside, living outside in a car because they don't want to get inside a house because they will think that the roof will fall, really makes us worry. I said to you that we have 43 schools in Ponce, 43 schools, and only 11 schools have just begun. And it's in a private center convention that is owned by the municipality, and we had 11 schools in interlocking time. In the morning, 5 group, and in the afternoon, 6 group. The students from high school are supposed to begin this week in a branch of the University of Puerto Rico in Ponce. For us, it has become a daily occurrence that understandably, has an undeniable emotional effects on our people. People are emotionally affected. There are scars. There are scars because we don't feel secure because every time it's shaking. And we can feel it. We can feel it. Even though it don't last too much, but we can feel it. And in a sense, this is the biggest challenge that we face. While there are objective criteria to address material loss, it is quite different to deal with the emotional scars of an unpredictable event. But we don't know when will happen an earthquake. Hundreds of people have taken to open public spaces each night for fear of a ceiling collapse during their sleep. Weeks ago, now I still have one shelter, and we call satellite shelter the people who live in tarps. We prepare a tarp outside, in street, in any place, because people live during the night. They stay during the day they stay at their homes, but during the night they sleep in their car and the tarps. They use their car, put it in the tarps, and they stay all the night. All people, family, whole families completely. And I have to tell that the law makes us that the mayors only can give food by the Department of Education to the people who are in the shelter recognized by the government. Who assigned the shelter is the Department of Housing and the Department of Education to the mayors. We're not the one who decide. It's the Department of Education and the Department of Housing of the central government. Is the one who decide. So they give us one shelter. We even have 24 satellite shelters, people living outside. And we cannot stand that there were people having no lunch, no, at the same time, meal without World Central Kitchen. They did the job. Those satellite shelters that not were recognized by the central government, they gave us the food. And I told the governor of Puerto Rico, who is a new governor, is a woman. She became governor. You know what happened with Governor Rosselló. He has been taken out and he resigned. And this woman, I told her, World Central Kitchens are the ones that we have to thank. Not only the Department of Education, who is now taking charge of the churches that are being recognized, but World Central Kitchen, with José, Andrés, with Nate, with Tom, with Tim, with Josh, were the ones who gave us the food. Even though the National Guard, FEMA came over there, even though they were there, they were fed by these people. And we didn't pay them. We didn't pay not a cent to them. So we have to be very grateful to them. Hundreds of people have been taken to open public spaces each night for fear of ceiling collapse during their sleep. Most of the people have a home with no apparent damage. We understand the concerns of emotional burden of the people. I also shudder every time the earth shakes. Unlike Maria, in a short time, the great majority of the town had access to basic service. In less than 48 hours, we have power. We have, at the same time, water. After Maria, no. After Maria, many months, we didn't have water, nor even have, at the same time, nor energy. So the basic service, the health services system were functioning, and large portion of the private sector has restored its operation. And the community, the people who are volunteers from every place came to those 5 cities. In the South, we were affected 5 cities at the first time. It was Guánica. Guánica, maybe there are about 15,000 people living, 15,000. The other one is Yauco. They have 33,000 people living, population. The other was 22,000 is Peñuelas, and the other one was Guayanilla. A small town is about 17,000 people. And Ponce, who has 134,000 people living. So it's the biggest one. The delivery of supply, I have to tell you, for example, a property, what after the earthquake, what happened? How we can go home again if they were checked? If every time there was seismic moving, they have to check again. We have about 1,516 areas that we asked for help. 1,000 people, 516 people were asking, families asking for help. Up to now, almost 400 are collapsed and are destroyed. But the biggest city that has high buildings, I have 39 high buildings. For example, there are places as condominiums for elder people. At the same time, we have all the municipality buildings. I have 17 buildings in the municipality that are damaged at the same time. I had more than 200 houses that has to be destroyed. And every time the structural engineers go and check every house, they put a cross. If it is red, it has to be destroyed. If it is yellow, it has to be fixed before leaving again. And if it's green, you can go back again. But people are afraid to live under the ceiling. So the logistical problem of this cannot be minimized. The delivery of supply has been complicated for the sector of the population that has chosen to take refuge in public areas that are not certified, as I said, or inspected, and where there are great limitations on legal impediment to provide certain request resources. If you don't have a permit, or if you don't own your own house, or you don't have those papers, it will be difficult for FEMA to help you. That's one of the problems. We also have to work with people from the municipality and others who unfortunately take advantage of the event to abandon their family members, particularly elderly, in shelters. I have seen a daughter, a son, taking his mother as his grandfather and said to me, take care here, please, for them in the shelter, and let them. We're humans. My mother died 1 year and a half. She was 93 years old, but I take care of her. My sister take care of them. Well, we were taking care of the elderly people. And we should teach our kids and these young guys from the university, from college, that they have to take care also of elderly people. It's important. Because sometimes I get there to the shelter and they say to me, hug me, please. Give me a kiss. And really makes us cry when we saw those things, that people feel alone. Please know that we still face many challenges from a governmental response perspective during the crisis. We began to implement many of the protocols and process developed after Maria. I have to tell that the new governor of Puerto Rico, Attorney Wanda Vasquez, has been doing a great job. In 48 hours, she brought out the energy, she brought out the water, she came to the south as many times as she could visit us in the whole week. She went to every place. We were 5 cities that were hit, but now they had included more than 10 more cities from the mountains and to the West Coast at the same time. Some of these emergencies, some of the protocols were ineffective. And some of the process, even though theoretically require rethinking and made a new ones, Ponce present a plan for earthquake many months ago. But the commissioner who was in charge didn't do a great job. He have a warehouse in Ponce with supplies. And me as a mayor, I didn't know. We didn't know. And many of the mayors in the South didn't know. And he didn't tell us. The first person who helped me, because the second night, I had more than 1,800 people living in a shelter. And they were sleeping in the floor. Because the emergency management commander didn't have the couches so that people can sleep. And I asked him several times, where do I can get those couch? I need it right now. Fill the form 113. I filled the form. We filled the form. We did as they said. And you know, those couches were in Ponce. And he didn't tell us. He sent me to another city about 1 hour and a half from Ponce to look for those and help the other cities. Even though we are in those cities from different opponent political parties, we didn't care about politics. I am not caring just now, even though it's election time. I am caring about my people and help my other mayors. I came here to DC to see congressmen and congresswomen so they can approve in the Senate an aid, a supplemental aid for the disaster. Because we are worried about, because we need that money to reconstruct the whole island. We have to demolish many areas at the same time. But even though, we're doing business. Ponce has an airport, Ponce has a port, and Ponce is a brick region. Even though we are a colonial and historical city, there are places that are open, there are places that are closed. But we're still open, and we're still doing business. While theoretically adequate require rethinking, that I said, one of these aspects is the communication. Communication is important when there is a disaster. After Maria, we didn't have phones, no function, no satellite phones function, no energy, no, and we cannot communicate, not even from the north to the south to the east, or the south to the west, no. But after the earthquake, 48 hours we have it. But communication is important, and coordination of all the emergency disaster. My recommendation, take courses. Make your mayor or mayor, your council, or mayor, senators, or representatives to explain to you in school, in college, in every place. Talk about earthquake. How do we prepare for an earthquake? I have my backpack with everything, and my satellite phone. And I take it to every place I move. There is water, there are medicine, first aid, there are many things. There are food also at the same time that have to be checked. Brian always with my backpack, in my car, on every place I go. However, I must recognize the tireless effort of thousands of citizens and public officials that are helping us overcome many of these difficulties. World Central Kitchen, I don't have a way to thank them. I don't have a way. We're only talking about people, what a great job they have done in 10 years. What a great job they have done after Maria hit Puerto Rico, after it hit Virgin Island, as the Bahamas suffered from a hurricane at the same time. Haiti, we have to be thankful to these guys. They have been done an excellent work. I must recognize also at the same time the work and the ability to coordinate with all stakeholders. As I have stated consistently, it is essential that we work collaboratively. We have to collaborate with everyone. If there is someone in your neighbor who needs help, help them. It's important. With the third sector is one, the religious sector, the third sector, community sectors, poor sectors, and the federal government. I have to be thankful for the federal government. Why not? They really has helped us. Without Malian, we cannot do it, my friends. We cannot do it. Precisely, that is why I am in DC. This week, I have been continuing developing policies that strengthen our capacities and fight for the rights and needs of the American citizens of Puerto Rico. While we appreciate the assistance that has been given, the rate of response has to be commensurate with the nature of the event. FEMA cannot let red tape, bureaucracy, an impediment to recovery. But we follow federal rules. In Ponce, we have used more than 500,000 millions of dollars during 25 years. And we had not been said that we have any finding. We didn't have any finding in those federal money. We continue in this endeavor with sensitivity and with the impetus as always. Hurricane Maria and the earthquakes have shaken us hard, but our foundations are immovable and came to serve my people. Together, mainland Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, everyone in the world. Together, we have to serve people. And together, we will recover as we have done in the past. Ponce is strong, we are strong. American citizens are strong. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Meléndez. Thank you for the wonderful words and for sharing your insights on the crisis in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria and the recent earthquake. So now, last but not least, please allow me to introduce our last panelist, Mr. Gregorio Igartúa, followed by a dialogue between the panelists, as well as questions and answers from the audience. Gregorio Igartúa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
He's a lawyer, CPA, too, and he has contributed to multiple judicial processes claiming the democratic rights of the American citizens of Puerto Rico. And recently, he appeared before the Human Rights Commission of the Organization of American States, demanding recognition of these fundamental rights for the American people of Puerto Rico. Thank you for being
Geovanny,
here.
and hi to everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's start off with our first question. And this one goes to Nate. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What are some challenges that you encountered when preparing meals for thousands of people in Puerto Rico, especially during Hurricane Maria and the recent earthquake?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two distinct sets of challenges. One of them is the logistical challenges of how you feed that many people in a time of crisis and identify those that are in need. You know, a lot of people have asked us, well, after Hurricane Maria, where did you get the food? Where did you find food? FEMA couldn't get food in. Where did you guys get food? And it seems such a silly question for to ask a chef where he finds food. I mean, you go to where the food is. You go to the food distributors on the island. You identify the right partners, the kitchens, the resources to activate. And so, very quickly we were able to establish a supply chain to get food coming in, whereas a lot of the public assistance was stuck at the port or couldn't get through, relying heavily on the private sector. And that's really kind of at the core of the model of the response that we have. So there's the logistical challenges that you really have to rely on the local community. You tap into the expertise of the people, the mayors who know their communities and the right people that know the neighborhoods and the areas that are hit the hardest. I remember going down to Ponce for the first time after Maria in 2017 and talking to the mayor and her administration about the areas that probably needed the most assistance. She said, well, you need to go to El Tuque, which is outside of Ponce, a little bit to the west. And so we drove in, and as we sort of had a bit of a caravan of all of our vehicles and food, and people ran out and they were like, FEMA's here. We said, no, we're not FEMA. But we do have food for you. And it was wonderful, and the community came together. We set up an area and started serving. We were the first people they had seen since the hurricane had hit. But we wouldn't have known that if not for working closely with the community itself and the mayors in the towns that we were serving. The second challenge is the red tape. In these types of situations, you want to have a coordinated response. You want to leverage the resources that the U.S. government can bring to the table. You have the National Guard, you have military, you have the financial resources of the U.S. government. But too often in these situations, you end up with individuals on the ground who are really wonderful individuals. The employees of FEMA and others that we met in the early days were trying very hard, and they wanted to do great work. But they found themselves stuck and unable to move quickly enough. They were unable to take the smart approach. And one example I'll give you is, we very quickly were able, working with the community and the resources that were there, get a hot meal operation up and going on the island. The only large scale operation that was preparing hot meals. We were delivering. We had mayors and municipalities driving 2-3 hours to come to our kitchen to pick up thousands of meals to take back to their communities to feed some of the elderly and the folks that were really in tough places. So it would make sense to scale up that operation, and this is what Jose and I tried to do. But there wasn't really a mechanism to do that. The folks on the ground didn't have a way to support what was already happening. And so while we were sort of struggling for support, even if it was just logistical support, even if it was just help us get more food in or help us deliver over here, while that was going on and we were struggling, FEMA was in the middle of signing a $50 million contract with a catering company out of Atlanta run by one person who had no capability to deliver any food or get food to Puerto Rico. But you find, this, after that came out in the news, they canceled the contract, it became a big thing, but you sort of recognize then sort of the system working against itself and the people on the ground that are really great human beings. And so what we found, which I want to end with, which is very important, is that oftentimes the most productive and efficient way to work is one-on-one. Or in these sort of moments where decisions can just be made in real time without having to go up the chain of command and get certain approval. We were there on the ground the first couple of days in Puerto Rico. We met some guys from Homeland Security, from Homeland Security Investigations. They work along the border, part of DHS, and they were there to kind of provide security and safety and also to go out to parts of the island to do wellness checks. And so we said, well, you've got this fleet of SUVs, probably 30 or 40 SUVs, and you're driving all over the island for DHS. How about we give you food to take with you? And then when you go out there, you can hand out food to the communities. And the local, the individuals who were there, the agents, the special agents on the ground said, yeah, that sounds good. We're just going to do it. They didn't make a phone call. They didn't ask anybody. They didn't, try. They just said, yeah, that's great. So every day they would drive to our kitchen. We'd fill up their trucks, and they would drive all across the island. And they became one of our delivery arms. But if we had tried to sort of go from the top down, it would have really been impossible. So I think, as we're looking at what can be done, I think you really have to sort of identify those bottlenecks and what can you do to empower the good work that's happening? How do you empower the local leaders, the mayors, and the community leaders not withhold from them, not have warehouses full of things that they don't even know about or can access, right? I mean, how do you empower them? Because they're the ones that are really going to be able to serve and know what the communities need most.
Thank you. I think you mentioned something very important. I mean, very, very interesting when you said about red tape, for example. I think that's something that is really critical, instrumental when it comes to helping people, especially when it comes to helping people. So now, Gregorio, how are you?
How are you? Fine, thank you.
Thank you. So how you were in Puerto Rico during these major disasters, these major natural disasters. So you experienced this firsthand. How was the response to the recent earthquakes different from the hurricanes?
Well, what I would like to say is that every discussion must begin with Maria, because both from a governmental point of view and from a citizen's point of view. From a policy point of view, Maria was such a traumatic event, and we invested so much in developing protocols and developing an infrastructure to deal with a crisis. And we were, in a sense, once this event happened, in a sense, we tried to pour all that into this experience, and yet the earthquakes are quite different from Maria, from a hurricane. So although we have developed all these protocols and we had all these good ideas, it was difficult at first to apply them to this specific event. And from the people's point of view, it's the same. You know, you have to start from Maria because their patience has been tested. They don't want to go through the same. So their reaction and their availability to deal with government officials and all emergency plans come from that point of view. They just don't want to go through that again. And it has been quite difficult, I would say, to establish a coherent response in certain ways just because of that. We are still developing protocols and still developing the right mix of policies to address not just a hurricane, which we are more used to, but all kinds of natural disasters, you know. And that has been the difficulty, at least from my point of view, that you cannot have a set of rules, a one-size-fits-all set of rules for everything. And in a way, we always have a tendency to do that, and that brings upon a big challenge, but we are still learning. We don't want to have these types of events, but we're still learning, and they do help in addressing these issues, particularly communication. Communication is essential at all levels. And you know, that's always one of the biggest problems. Even when you plan for it, since the events are different, the role players, the stakeholders are different, the participants are different. We have to constantly have an infrastructure or an ecosystem that quickly adapts and adjusts to the situations. And that's why the third sector is so important, because the officials, governmental officials in a democracy change, and all of them do not have the expertise. You have experts in certain areas, but they don't have the expertise that sometimes the third sector has in a wider array of events and circumstances.
That's very true. That's why we have to bring together the entire community, especially, you know, like having partnerships in the third sector is very important in cases like this. So, and I think that when it comes to these kind of events, Puerto Ricans are very used to having hurricanes, but this time was very different. So, Mayor, I have a question for you.
Let me tell you this. Every 6 months, by June the 1st to December the 1st, is the time of hurricane season. Hurricane season. June the 1st through December the 1st is the hurricane season in the Caribbean islands in Puerto Rico.
That's true. And what is like managing a city during times of crisis? How do you prepare for something like this?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that the first thing is in my mind is how are my daughters and their husband and my granddaughter? Are they okay? But I couldn't get any communication at the first one because electricity was off, and at the same time the systems that are owned by the central government were off. So I dress myself and I get out, but it is important that one, coordination, communication. You have to take courses, experiences that during these years I have passed, and I have come to many courses that have been given by the emergency system, by the hurricane system, and every mayor has to make plans for earthquake, have to make plans with emergency directed management, and at the same time, it's difficult because we have to take care of everyone. And as I get dressed that night, that morning, it was 4:30 in the morning, and I live across the emergency management office, and I take the director. Is everything is okay? There are people that are at the same time affected. Just tell me what you have in your phone. But we call immediately. We have a group that is in at the same time that when there is a disaster, they have to appear in the emergency system office at the same time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So every director of every department in my municipality has to be there and began all the works. Have to take care of the roads, how to clean the roads, if there are persons who are at the same time affected, if there are deaths, if there are people that the roof collapsed and they are over there. So we have to take care of everyone. And our plans that immediately by the health department, the shelter that we have to open immediately so people can move into the shelter and take out every person out of those heights buildings. So experience is one of the determination that we have to make. At the same time, the passion of determination and the passion of doing things that we are the one who have to take care of the people. But we are the leaders, so we have to be prepared. We are not even prepared for a disaster, but we have to take many courses at the same time. We have many meetings to go, many meetings with the community, and stay with the community what you lack. For example, after Maria, we prepared, I have 300 communities in Ponce. I prepared 365 persons from different communities in first aid, in communication, in massification of food, and at the same time in laws that has to be legal areas at the same time. We teach them and train them for 6 months. Now we are in our third group of 300 members of the third party, of the communities, different communities. They know how to get the first help. They become the first responder because you cannot wait for the central government to come. Because I haven't seen, for example, when Maria hits Ponce, I saw the governor 3 weeks after Maria. Now, after the earthquake, I saw the governor 24 hours after. She came. And she began to give instructions and doing things with all the departments and agencies that were from the central government. But you have to be prepared. You have to make coordinations. You have to make decisions. You are the leader. And you have to make, at the same time, simulacros. I would say simulacros in English as
Drills.
trails.
Safety drills.
Yes. Have to make trails in different kinds. If a hurricane, because hurricane can pass and you can work. But the earthquake, after 1 month and a half, is still shaking. It's still shaking. So experience is one of the things. And taking care of people, taking every course you can, go and visit and talk to the community, that's very important. And empower your community. That's one of the things.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. This question goes to Nate. So please tell us about World Central Kitchen's future plans for its Plow to Plate initiative and programs in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I alluded to this in the opening. We recognized after cooking for many months after Maria, looking at why did we have to cook in the first place, right? What was the situation? And one of the challenges that Puerto Rico faces is it was importing roughly about 90% of its food onto the island before the hurricane hit. And this is not unique to Puerto Rico. I mean, if you look at the U.S. Virgin Islands, if you look at other Caribbean nations, we live in such a globalized society now that it's often cheaper to just import things from somewhere else where there might be subsidies or cheaper labor, and you end up with locations, cities, countries, states that are not very resilient on their own. I mean, I think we're starting to see this now as manufacturing in China has now been shut down for so long, and I think this is going to be a ripple effect. You know, and we're seeing how vulnerable we are when we rely on the outside. So especially when it comes to food, this is a major problem, because if Puerto Rico is importing all of its food regularly and relying on the ships coming in, bringing the food, and you have an event, a hurricane, flooding, whatever it might be that's disrupting that chain, all of a sudden now you don't have any food anymore on the shelves to stock the shelves. And this is what we saw happen during Maria for many weeks. It took the system a long time to sort of reboot and get back to normal as things got repaired. So as part of our work, you know, we're looking at, we don't sort of just drop in somewhere and feed people and then walk away. If there is an opportunity for us to support for the long term, that's what we want to do. And so we began a program that we call our Plata Plate program in Puerto Rico, where we committed about $4 million over 4 years to invest in food security on the island. So supporting small farmers, food businesses, fisheries, getting more local produce into the local market. There was never, you know, we see this in DC, you've seen sort of the made in DC stuff and other things here. There really wasn't that in Puerto Rico. There wasn't sort of a pride in local Puerto Rican products, despite it being this incredible Caribbean nation that with so much potential. And coffee is another great example of a huge opportunity in Puerto Rico. So we have about 100 grantees. I don't like to call them grantees because they're really like partners of ours. They're not. We don't just give them money and walk away. They become part of what we do. They become sort of part of our network, and we invest in them, not for monetary gain or return, but for the growth of their businesses and support of you know, the future of Puerto Rico. So we've got about 100 businesses now. We've launched farmers markets all over the island. We've been able to really lift up some of these businesses to try to get them sort of between the small stage to the larger growth, and then working with big buyers like Walmart on the island, and also big hotel chains like Marriott to start sourcing more locally and getting the systems in place of reliability, of quality, and things like that. And we saw this really working during the earthquake, where we were able to start purchasing a lot of our produce from those local farms. So we weren't buying a lot of the produce, you know, from that was being brought in and imported, but we were buying these amazing lettuces and radishes and all sorts of greens from local Puerto Rican farms that were, you know, just, you know, minutes or hours away from Ponce. So we're now taking that program and going to be expanding it to more places, including the Bahamas and others. But really, it started right there in Puerto Rico.
Sounds like you guys have big plans, so which is good. So we are all on the same page regarding the tremendous potential that Puerto Rico has. And from my perspective, I think Puerto Rico needs, you know, same opportunities as any American citizen in the States, and they need to be heard. They need to be at the same, you know, place, just like anyone else, because they are American citizens as well. So, Gregorio, what is the role or approach that the U.S. government has had in Puerto Rico over the last years?
Well, for us, you know, it's always a controversial theme in a way, because everyone thinks when we are talking about the relationship with the federal government that we are talking about politics, but in reality we're talking about everyday life. You know, there's a logistical aspect to politics and to governmental participation. You know, we live in an island that is part of the United States for 122 years almost now, and but we don't have representation here in DC. We do have Jennifer Gonzalez, the resident commissioner, who has done a great job, but we don't have voting representatives or senators. And that's, from a logistical point of view, the political process is like that. You need to have votes in order, in a certain way, to negotiate your way around it. And obviously, that's a big challenge for Puerto Rico. Even though I'm not contesting if there's goodwill or not, it's not from a, I don't want to get into if it's intentional or not, but the reality is that even with all the good faith, treatment has not been equal to other places in the United States. And that's a fact. It's not a political or status issue. Red tape that was mentioned before, we understand, I've dealt with the government for quite a while now, and I understand the need for measures that guarantee the process that the money is well spent, and the government has a right, the federal government does have a right to monitor the money in Puerto Rico and how it's used. And I don't think anybody in Puerto Rico opposes that. But the issue is that in a certain way, that has been used like an excuse that has had the effect, at the very least, of delaying the recovery from Maria. And people get tired of talking about the same thing after a while. They think we are, again with Maria, 2 years after that. But the reality is that we are still speaking about Maria because it hasn't been dealt with. The money has been assigned. You've seen the newspapers. The money has been assigned, but red tape has become an impediment to recovery. That's a fact in Puerto Rico. The money has been assigned. It has not been disbursed. Sorry.
Thank you very much for your comments. So I just don't want to leave this place without asking this question. We need to wrap up pretty soon for the interest of time. And I'm going to just leave this question open to anyone on this panel. And what is the role that Puerto Rico plays and could play in the future in the presidential elections of the United States?
Well, let me tell you, I am not an expert in politics like he is an expert in politics, even though I am the mayor, but I am a doer. But one of the things I will say that we have more than 5 million Puerto Ricanos here in mainland, and every representative or congresswoman, congressman should know that we have 5 million that can vote here. They cannot vote there. We can vote in a primary. I mean, that's stupid. As American citizens in Puerto Rico, we can vote in the primaries, but not in the election time. Not in the election time. But if they in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, they don't help Puerto Rico, they know. We will talk to every 5 million of those members that are there. And we told them that we haven't received the right treatment that California, Texas, or Florida has in Puerto Rico. We're not treated equally, and we only want to be treated equally as American citizens. We're humans.
Do you have any comments on that?
I just want to add that obviously as American citizens, we want to have that to participate in the process. We want to sit at the table. That's very important. At the very least for a large portion of the population, and hopefully we will get that in the future. But until then, I call upon all our brothers and sisters to vote and to consider us when they are voting, consider the policies towards Puerto Rico, regardless of your ideology.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts you want to share?
I think what's very exciting to me about Puerto Rico is the opportunities that it presents, right? I mean, Puerto Rico is often sort of positioned as a problem for the U.S. An economic problem, a burden. After Maria, administration was sort of presented the problems of Puerto Rico. And I think that I hope that with some improved insight into the potential that we recognize as a country, the great opportunity that Puerto Rico offers. I mean, it's an incredible island, you know, in the Atlantic and the Caribbean, not only for economically for commerce and for food and for the culture that it brings to the table, and obviously the connection to the many Puerto Ricanos living here on the mainland. But I think also just, you know, I think as an opportunity to show what America really is all about at the end of the day, that we are, you know, a nation that uplifts and that helps progress. And I think that, you know, even when we have big disasters and we stumble and we need to come back, I mean, you know, coming back stronger is the way we do, right? I mean, we've seen this after many disasters here in the United States, in the mainland, and so I hope that we start to shift that, right? That we start to recognize it. And one of the things that we've been doing, one of the things that Jose has been doing, is just encouraging people to go visit, right? To just go down there. There are direct flights from DCA. It's super easy to get down there. It's cheap to fly down, and it's such a special place to visit. Whether you're in San Juan, whether you're out west on the beaches, whether you're down south. There's so much to see and so much to do, and so we're really my hope is that we can really start to shift that and visit and recognize, and that our leaders. We just had a congressional delegation come down. They visited some of our kitchens. They were in Ponce, and I think, you know, one of those big takeaways that I really hope to see is that that it's exciting, that this is a really special, amazing place, and we should be proud that it's part of the United States, it's part of America, and not as some, you know, sort of side, you know, side people. So that's what I would say. I would say, you know, it's a place that I fell in love with when I visited. Everybody I know who goes down there, it's a great time to go visit, you know, despite reading about the earthquakes and the situation and the recovery. You know, go to the amazing places and restaurants and the beaches and the hotels and everything, and just enjoy it. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit. It was amazing when Lin-Manuel Miranda went down and brought Hamilton down there. Many people flew down to the island. We're seeing, you know, kind of I hope there's a silver lining to Maria, right? To the destruction and the impact that it had on the island, that it was a wake-up call, and some renewed attention will, you know, help kind of, you know, get Puerto Rico to where it needs to be.
It was certainly a wake-up call.
Let me tell you this. It is not only important in the physical infrastructure of buildings, but in the nature, I mean, environment. We have to cultivate our earth at the same time. And that's important. We have many land in Ponce, in the north of Ponce. And there are farms that they teach us how to cultivate at the same time. And there are coffee, there are other things that we can be conscious of. The nature infrastructure is very important, nature infrastructure.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's give our wonderful panel a big round of applause. Now let's turn to our audience for a few questions. Please, state your name and organization. We have 2 mics, one on each side, and if anyone has some difficulties standing, so we can get the mic to you. So we have one here.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now? Okay. So my question in particular is for the mayor of Ponce, Mayita. Thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to give a short preface to the audience who might not know very much about Puerto Rico, but the mayor, Mayita Meléndez, went on the radio to say that the people living in tents in the south were happy and content with the poor conditions that they received. It is also important to recognize that the mayor has stated that she did not know anything about the supplies that were stored. So what do you think is worse? Someone who is part of the New Progressive Party political machine is hiding supplies from her people with blood on their hands, or somebody who claims to be a competent mayor and is unable to know what is even in her backyard? So my question for the mayor is, when will you resign from your post to let somebody who actually cares about Ponceños help the community, since you have done such a terrible job representing Ponceños and you have done a terrible job in recovery? And while you're here parading around with meetings in Congress, people are still in tents. The municipality has not provided adequate plans for housing those people. And the central government, which you are a member of the party of Wanda Vasquez and Tomas Rivera Schatz, the New Progressive Party is a political mafia with blood on its hands. So my question to you is, when will you resign?
First of all, I came to politics just to serve the people. First of all, I am a health defender, and I have been waiting for 11 years in Ponce. The second thing, when I get to Ponce as a mayor, they didn't have a mass transportation system, a public mass transportation system. I established a free mass transportation system. At the same time, the Head Start schools were schools for 1,500 kids, but a political issue. The teachers were the one in charge in political from the government that is opening from my New Progressive Party. And I said, I cannot teach kids from 3 to 4 years about politics. We are going to train them how to study. We are going to train them manners. We are going to train them emotionally, technical and digital way. And we did it. We are the best Head Start in Puerto Rico. And at the same time, we'll think that here in the state. And we have given the last 5 years, we have been, have $62 million for educating those kids in the Head Start. The other thing is that the people that I said that was happy was when the governor, Wanda Vasquez, was to visit the 1,000 people. They were in the shelter was not a school. Shelters in Puerto Rico are schools, And the first time they were in a school, but they were sleeping outside because they don't want to get beside using a roof as a ceiling. No, because they were afraid. Then we take to a base camp that is established by the National Guard, and they live in cars. Other has air conditionings, other has windmills, and they said, when the governor said, how do you feel? And they say, we feel secure here because we are not inside buildings. That's one of the things they said. The second thing is that those warehouses are owned by the central government, my friend. The central government is one thing, and the local municipalities are another thing. I am autonomous. I can make laws for my people. And we have made many systems in health. I have 2 buses. One bus that goes to every camp, to every community, and give free services. The second thing is that a medical bus. We go to every community, free medical services at the same time. And then those warehouses were owned in a private area that is owned by the Department of Exportation and Commerce. Those are private areas. As a mayor, I cannot get inside any warehouse and say, open that up because I want to see what is there. No, my friend. This is a private area, and that private area is owned by the central government, by the commander who was in charge of those things of the emergency system. When I get the notice, if the person who knows me knows that Mayita Meléndez, if has known that there were a warehouse full of supplies, I haven't had to go to Cabo Rojo to look for couches. I haven't had to call the mayor of San Juan, who is from my opponent party, to call her to bring me water and give water to Peñuelas, who is from my opponent party, and give couches to Yauco. No, I didn't know. And the people who know me that I am an honest woman, I have never been signed by a federal finding or anything. I have been member, as a president of the American Dental Association in Puerto Rico. I have been president of many boards, and at the same time, only 40 or 45 people who marched in front of the municipality to send me to resign. Only 40, 48 or 40, 50 people. When Ricardo Rosselló was the governor, there were millions of persons resigning.
When Rosselló was the governor, people were not
Thank you.
intense.
Excuse me. We
got
are
your question. We're running out of time.
keeping
Can
the
I ask
order
you a
here.
question?
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. That's what democracy.
I would
is all-
like to make
that's-
a brief
sorry,
point.
That's what democracy is all about. So we have a question here, and I think for the interest of time, maybe you can add something after.
No,
the
no, I
gentleman
want to
over
make
there.
a brief point before that, because and obviously this is democracy. He can say whatever, and it's fine. But I would like to say that even for the most cynical person, what would a major gain from hiding resources? What's the political gain? If you want to be a cynic and say, okay, I'm gonna use this for political gain,
In
what
the
do
year
I
of
gain?
election.
What do I gain in political gain? What?
you.
No,
Thank you.
but I'm answering you. What would it gain? So it's easy to come and post a question and be controversial about it, but when you go to the bottom of it, to the logic of it, it's not logical. Any politician, no politician would do that to gain favor of their people. You know, you could say there have been errors in the process, and that's true, that always happens. She started by saying that we are human, and they are human. But to say that they are hiding resources, for what reason? You know, for what reason? And that's the basis of it. And the other thing I would like to say is that, you know, elections are in 6 months. In 6 or 8 months, the people of Ponce will vote, and I think you're from Ponce, right? You vote in Ponce? No. They get a chance to vote, and hopefully they'll vote for whoever they want, and that's part of the right. But to come and ask for her to ignore the democratic will of the people of Ponce is wrong also. You know, there was an election, and it was not 50, 60, or 70 people that voted. She has the votes of thousands of people, and her term, if the people want it to end in December, it will end in December. If not, the people will speak, and we'll see. And that's a right, the same right as you have. I'm not mad, and I'm not attacking you. You have the right to make all the statements you want. That's democracy, and we need that to have that discussion. But at the same time, we hear a lot of things all the time, and they may seem logical, but when you go to the bottom of them, they are just, you know, nobody in their right mind would do that, because there's no gain in doing what you are accusing her of.
Thank you very much for the clarifications. Again, this is what democracy is all about. We appreciate your question. Thank you so much for coming. So we have another question over there.
Yes.
Yes.
My question, it's a less contentious. My question is for Nate. Two questions, actually. How do you choose where to go? You know, I mean, there's the whole world has crisis. There was an article in the Washington Post just recently in the island of Lesbos in Greece, where, you know, you have refugees that are getting less than the 2 meals per day, less than the calorie count, etc. So how do you choose, right? I mean, how do you choose? And then how do you know, there's some countries, unfortunately, like Puerto Rico, like the Caribbean, that are just gonna, you know, it's recurring tragedies. I mean, it's every so many years it's gonna happen. So do you, kind of to pick up on the mayor's comment earlier about, you know, planning, do you plan ahead? Do you look for local partners? I mean, obviously Puerto Rico you haven't because you worked there, but in countries where maybe you haven't worked.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So first question, it's tricky because we are always, every situation is different, and so we're always evaluating. I think the key thing for us is where are there gaps, or where is there a situation where our expertise or experience could be a benefit to support the local communities, or to maybe expand upon what's already been done. We've tried to put parameters around it and said, well, we're going to just stay in the Caribbean. And then a couple of years ago, we found ourselves in Indonesia. More recently, there was a big earthquake in Albania in December, and we found ourselves out in Albania supporting the local community, not with a huge team coming in. So a lot of it is sort of making the decisions based on the circumstances of the particular situation. There are some situations that are much more obvious. A Category 5 hurricane coming, disrupting services, places that we have strong networks or that we know are going to be hit frequently, like the state of California, which is perpetually on fire now. You know, those types of situations are a little bit more clear, and then we sort of have to look and analyze and see as things unfold. And I think we're in an unprecedented time. I think we're seeing the direct impact of the changing climate. Whatever you believe is causing the changing climate, I at least think we've come to a general consensus as a planet that the climate is changing. Category 5 hurricanes used to be once a decade. Now they're multiple times a year sometimes. You've got wildfires. We have a team down in Australia that's been working down there and supporting down there. So we're certainly seeing the need of an organization like ours more frequently. But it is a lot about looking at that specific situation, looking at partners, looking at where we can be a benefit. The second piece is, yes, I think connected to the growing need in these places. We're sort of now in a place where we can probably guess that there will be a major hurricane to hit the Caribbean this year. We don't know where it's going to hit. Dorian, originally, we actually went down to Puerto Rico when Hurricane Dorian was coming. Originally, looked like it was going to hit Dominican Republic, and then it was going to hit Puerto Rico, and so we went down there to start mobilizing. Then it missed Puerto Rico and went north, and then hung a left right into the Bahamas. Remember, it was going to hit Alabama for a little while. So, you know, we can sort of, you know, at least have a sense that we need to be ready. And so we're starting to do this. We're starting to look at where in the Caribbean we can begin pre-positioning materials to be able to respond. The Bahamas for us was a major effort where we had helicopters and planes, and we had never done this before, but we recognized that we needed to move quickly, and we were dealing with islands and how do you get food onto an island. So all of this learning over the past couple of years, we're now starting to put together into a bit more of a coordinated effort. Jose Andres announced last week that we're going to work on with ourselves, with partners from the public sector, the private sector, and also with governments on what we've tentatively called like a 21-day plan, where the first 21 days after a disaster, you need to move quickly. There's no delaying. You can't sit around in a convention center talking about what you're going to do. You have to be able to move super fast and be able to cut through all of the nonsense. And one of the big challenges I think that we face as a nation, if we're looking at the United States, is FEMA does two things. It's sort of supposed to coordinate that initial response, and in some extreme cases will be directly hands-on in the initial response. But a lot of what FEMA does is the long-term recovery, right? It's the allocation of funding. It's giving people money to rebuild their homes. It's allocating, you know, billions and billions of dollars and tracking that, and it's a lot of work. And sometimes what happens is we sort of stumble over ourselves in those early days because we're caught up in thinking about that longer term recovery, when we just need to, for the first couple of weeks, we just need to get people, you know, stabilized. We need to get the situation stabilized. So I think that's going to be a next really important piece of what we all need to do kind of collectively to come together and recognize that what are the things that we need to do in those early days? How do we get food, water, shelter, medicine to people immediately? How can the governments have the flexibility in those early days to allocate, spend money smartly, and obviously, you know, tracked, but to be able to do those things and not have to wait around for 20 approvals for something. And you know, it's that type of flexibility. When we were responding to the earthquake, there was a desire for us to come in and support one of the schools that was being run by the Department of Education. And as the mayor said, you know, you're stuck there because it's run by the Department of Education. And so even though she wanted us to come in, she had to make phone calls, she had to call the governor, she had to get approvals just for us to come in and serve some meals. And so if we can kind of recognize that those first few weeks are gonna be critical, we can start moving quicker, we can start identifying what are those resources we have to have in place, and potentially even pre-positioning them. The one last thing I'll mention, because I think it's very interesting as we look at the future, is also recognizing that if we have to bring everything in from the United States to the Caribbean, it's very difficult. Puerto Rico has a naval base on the island called Roosevelt Roads. It's been sitting around for about 15 years. It was abandoned in about 2004. Not abandoned, it was left by the Navy. And it now looks a bit like Jurassic Park, kind of overgrown and kind of crazy. But it's got a high school, it's got buildings, it's got infrastructure, it's got an airport, it's got a deep water seaport. So we're now talking and working with the government of Puerto Rico and some of the folks who are looking at developing some of it, of setting up sort of a relief hub where it can serve to respond not only in Puerto Rico, but the U.S. Virgin Islands and other areas within the Caribbean. And so, but I think it sort of just underscores the fact that we have to recognize, we have to stop being surprised by these things happening, right? I mean, we keep telling ourselves, after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and we had the Superdome situation, after you know, Harvey hit Houston, after Maria, every single time we sort of sit back and we go, wow, we weren't, you know, that was so intense, that was so crazy. And I think it's time we all come together and recognize that, you know what, it's time to assume and pretty much be ready for it to happen again, and to know what everybody's going to do. So it was a long answer, but very, very important question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the interesting questions. Are there any other questions? So I think we have time for one more question, maybe two. Please, go ahead.
We can be quick. We can be quick.
You okay?
Sorry, yeah. Little laughter. I'm talking with organizations like Teach for America and Leaders for Educational Equity about how we can support efforts in Puerto Rico. And so I wanted to address my question to the mayor and say, like, what are the immediate needs? Like, what do you think is like, hey, come now, or like support this organization right now in doing this, and kind of like the long term. Like, we know that with all the trauma lately, mental health is a big issue. We know that there aren't teachers. There's teacher shortages all over the US and in Puerto Rico. We know that kids can't get to school because the schools need reconstruction. We also know that kids can't get to school for other reasons like transportation, because there were previously a lot of schools closed. And so kind of just like your point, like, what do you think we can do and how can we support?
One of the things I will tell you that in school, about school, the decisions has to be made by the Department of Education from the central government. I exposed to them, to the Secretary of Education. I have a convention center that can be filled by 3,000 people. You can use it with no charge. Okay, that's one of the things. The other thing is that there are buildings that are closed, that store has left, and I have told them, for example, that they can use Home Depot. It's a big area, and they can place schools over there, high school for there, and at the same time, there are other places they have. I have talked with the president of the Federations of Teachers here in Puerto Rico, in Mayland, and she's a friend of mine, and I have been in Congress with her, and we have talked that teachers need to work. For example, there is a group of 2 sisters that have been for more than 1 month teaching in tarps in a park. They have more than 500 kids over there. They are from a private school. And I went to see the Secretary of Education, and I said to him, please, convalidate those time for those kids. Because the first week of school, they are supposed to work with the emotional part of all the kids. And then after that, they will begin with all the classes. There are virtual classes at the same time, through the internet. The ones that are going in high school, they will be in the universities or the college university branches over there. Caribbean University, University of Puerto Rico, where I study at the same time. And there are other places. This week is supposed to begin the high schools. And they are going to give them 3 credits for semester of the first year of college. The other thing is that I believe in God. I'm sorry, but I believe in God. I believe in another force. Pray for the people to continue struggling, to continue fighting for the real needing of the people. I believe in the voluntarism. I believe it. And I believe in non-profit organization at the same time. Non-profit organization at the same time has helped the governments, and that's important for all of us. So it's important that you as a student here can talk to other ones and said, we can go maybe in a semester, in weeks, to do some volunteerism time. And you can visit 78 municipalities, as they say. Vieques needed, Culebra needed, and we have now, let me tell you this. Puerto Rico is divided in 2 places. The Federation of Mayors are the one who believe in statehood. And the Association of Mayors is the one who believes in the Commonwealth. Now we are creating 7 of the 78 mayors. We are creating the League of Cities. The League of Cities work with the issue that we came to politics to help the people, to serve the people. There are persons from the Commonwealth and there are persons from the New Progressive Party. And next Thursday, in 2 days, they will, Oxen and Ford Foundation are going to collaborate with this League of Cities to help them. We can make others mayors to help their financial or their areas for getting better services for the people. As I said, I have been 34 years as a dentist. I have been 11 years as a mayor, and I'm still working for the people. I work for the people in the coast, for the people in the urban area, and for the people in the rural area at the same time. Well, you have to take care of them. We create efforts. There are students who doesn't believe in sport. Okay, but they believe in arts. So we create some other areas that they can be presented in the historical theater of Ponce to make plays over there. And we have participation of 11 schools from Ponce, private and public school. So give time and opportunity to people can express, to people can. Now we have a coalition of from the Commerce Association, coalition from the merchandise area, from the academic area, and the political area of Ponce. And this coalition is going to reconstruct the island. We have already approved 19 big projects to be reconstructed, about more than $150 million. And at the same time, 48 small projects of $133,000 that we have gained in federal funds for reconstruction in every area of each community. So we continue still giving opportunity that the third sector can be worked together. Because I am not the one who decides who's going to make the projects. It's the people of my city who are the ones who decide it. So that's important.
If I may, after we can also provide you with information of education department of the municipality, so you can talk to them and maybe coordinate something with them that in the areas where you can help, it will greatly benefit the people. We are two areas you ask, the two areas you addressed, mental health and
important.
educations are
It's
the
important.
maybe the along with health and
Social
food
workers,
are
psychologists.
are very important at this time,
In
and
this
very
time.
much help. A lot of help is needed. So we'll give you the contact so we can coordinate something in the future.
Thank you very much for following up on that question. Thank you for the question. So we have time for just one last question. I think we are behind right now, so please
Oh, we
let's
quickly.
be brief on this one.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thanks to World Cooking Kitchen, and I hope that you can do the port on Aguadilla, and you have ability to, like, I don't know, how can you work with the embargo laws that we have in Puerto Rico that are really difficult for us to get food there. My name is Mariana Soler, and I'm from Barceloneta, Puerto Rico, and my question is for you, Major. First was, what are the efforts, if any, that the government is doing to give mental assistance, mental health to the people that have been affected? And the second one is, what are the efforts that the government is doing to provide affordable housing to all the victims of this?
First of all, in mental health, I would say we have receiving many volunteerism from School of Medicine of Puerto Rico, the Ponce Health Science University, workers that have psychology center, who has a psychology doctoral degree. At the same time, AMSCA, who is part of social workers that treat people with drugs. They are also helping. There have been many psychologists, psychiatrists going to different places at the satellite shelters and the shelter that is recognized by the central government. We have received many help from people who are well prepared in mental health, and after they had give the treatment to all these people, they have in a manner of a more conscious way of treating people on having and they feel more secure. But it's continuously. The social worker continuously, the psychologist continuously, the School of Medicines, volunteerism. For example, we have just right now structural engineer from Louisiana and from New York, working at the same time with the Colegio de Ingenieros from Puerto Rico, working in the different areas because we have to check more than 60,000 houses in the same place in Ponce. That was the first question. The second one was
Regarding housing, affordable
housing. We have different programs. We have a housing department, municipal housing department. We receive a federal fund from Section 8, and we have more than 100 vouchers, and we gave it to them. The vouchers, but they have to fill forms, federal forms that require center information from them. My people, I have a person in charge of the management of all the citizens. She's an excellent social worker, and she has been taking many persons to the different agencies. And so I asked the governor that she should have in every shelter representative from the Department of Housing, the Department of Health, Department of Fiscal Area, Department, every representative. So they have been helping all those people. That was Section 8, hot at the same time is helping, and the government of Puerto Rico took from the banks all the houses that were repossessed. There are more than 1,000 houses from all over the Puerto Rico, and they gave us the lease to all the mayors in the South to talk to the people that doesn't have a house, because not all of them need a house. Some of them are afraid to live alone because they are oldest and they don't want to live alone. I met a lady who was 93 years old, and she said to me, I stay here during the nights because I am not living behind a roof. So I said, but you should go and go to your place. And no, I accompany with people here, and we talk all the night. And that's what she said. And I'm happy she said that. And because I'm talking with people, I don't live alone. I live alone in my house, alone, because my daughter lives in San Juan, and I live in the south. So I'm happy because I am with God. I am feel that they're working for the people, doing things for the people, for the people. So I will say Section 8, hot, at the same time, the lease that repossess the housing, at the same time, public housing has been given them, public housing. And at the
has a program also, Airbnb.
SBA also is helping, giving some of them that could have loans at the same time and have the money to repay at a low percentage. And at the same time, FEMA has paid them for 18 months to be in a hotel. If they want to be in a hotel, 18 months. So after that, after those 18 months, the house will be all replaced and all fixed at the same time.
Thank you very much for your question, Maria Elena, and thank you for coming. So, on behalf of NYU DC Brademas Center, I want to express my gratitude to everyone here in this auditorium, to everyone who made the time to come, and of course, to our wonderful panel today for taking your time to speak with us about these very important issues. So I think that with, new technologies and measures of preparation, maybe we can hopefully reduce the vulnerability of Puerto Rico in the future. So I encourage everyone in this room to come visit the island soon. Thank you very much.